And therefore, what we have done in that general region, we have taken the decision that all teachers will be evacuated and pulled at safe points, and then they will be escorted to and from school until we flush out the current threat, mainly in Garissa, Wajir, southern Wajir, and much of Mandera County. So we are withdrawing non-local teachers to safe areas because we consider this to be a period of high security threat. We are pulling teachers together. Teachers who are operating in a certain locality, we pull them together to reside in a central safe place where they are guarded by security officers and escorted to and from work. We are also intensifying dominance patrols in routes frequently used by the non-local teachers, and we have actually proved that dominance patrols, or what we call clearance patrols, are very effective in terms of warding off these terror elements. We have just started that, and we hope to increase our patrols and some of the routes, for example, between Elwak and Mandera. We have intensified our patrols there, but we also want to include other routes, especially that corridor between Wajir, coming southwards to Tarbaj and into Garissa, Abaswen, Garissa. So dominance patrols, or what we call picketing, is what we want to upscale in most of those areas that are affected. And we had the same problem in the Lamu area, and one of the things that really helped us is the picketing patrols. Even yesterday's attack, one of the things that saved us, the target was to hurt hundreds of people who were traveling in buses, but luckily when the attack happened, there was a patrol. The special forces were just 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers on patrol, and that's why they were able to neutralize that threat before it could cause many fatalities. That is the strategy we want to employ for the main routes in northern Kenya, especially targeting the closure and opening of schools, because also experience has shown us, Chair, that most teachers are hurt, they are injured, they are killed, they are attacked, either during the closing or opening of schools. Why? Because they travel together. If they are not local teachers, maybe they are traveling to Nairobi or other parts of the country.
Waziri, your time is up.
Yeah.
So I would wish that in the remaining questions,
yeah,
you take us through the questions, and then you'll explain in the subsequent questions, so that I'll still add you another 5 minutes. Will be enough, or 10?
Five is enough. Five is enough.
So that you will explain the other nitty-gritties in the subsequent question.
So the first, then, by way of summary, Chair, the first question was, I was asked to enumerate the attacks that have taken place in the last 10 years, which I have, until the latest one, which was 3 weeks ago. The second question was the measures that we have taken, and I've already almost expended some of those measures. They are on page 3 of my statement, and maybe the third issue was how we are collaborating with the TSC, and there I can say again, it is through stakeholder meetings, which are regular. We are going to make them more regular, because those needs keep on changing from time to time. For example, After reviewing the latest attacks, Chair and members, we discovered that housing non-local teachers or keeping them inside police stations is not enough. We better even keep them in urban areas because some of these police stations require extra fortification so that to prevent attacks, because the militants have changed their nature of attack and they are increasingly using either fragmented rifle grenades or other projectiles, and they are able to attack some of these facilities even from 2-3 kilometers away, and therefore the kind of fortification required is a little more sophisticated to ensure the safety of these facilities. So we are looking at whether or not we'll continue housing those teachers in police stations, or we should get them elsewhere. And Chair, for purposes of the safety of our teachers, I better leave that subject there, because we don't want to say exactly where we are taking them, but we'll take them to safer places. The other question, Chair, was the challenges that we are facing in protecting teachers in these areas. Limited personnel. We as a country have enough general duty police officers, but the type of threats that is faced in northern Kenya and other areas with serious security challenges require more deployment of specialized elite police units, and we don't have enough. We don't have enough of this. We are working towards enhancing because those kind of threats can only be addressed through very, very complicated security operations that are not available to the general duty policing contingents. That's one of the challenge. Some of the locations are in very remote areas. The schools are far away and far in between, and that makes it impossible for us to be present elsewhere. And then there's a lot of fake news that is causing alarm sometimes unnecessarily because of social media. There's a bit of incitement, even from the local communities, against non-local teachers. So some of the threats are coming from the local communities themselves, and we must therefore look towards engaging local communities to accept the reality that they don't have enough teachers and they will rely on teachers from elsewhere. And even as they work towards generating their own adequate capacity of local teachers, they will still need non-local teachers to fill that gap. So when they incite harm on non-local teachers, they're actually harming the education of their own children. We have the social amenities are scarce, and therefore most teachers are attacked when they are leaving their stations to go and look for social amenities. So that's a long-term development challenge that we need to look at. And or being even recruited into some of these networks is real. So we would recommend shorter periods of service for non-local teachers in those areas. We also recommend that we need to have a framework for sharing information between the teaching authorities and security authorities, and remove the tensions that exist between us and the education sector. We should also have a long-term way of recruiting adequate local teachers from those areas. We should also consider giving scholarships to local students from northern Kenya, so that they can take up teaching positions in their own areas as a long-term issue. We also don't know how it will be feasible if the opening and closing dates can be staggered for schools, because most attacks happen when teachers are traveling together on opening or closing day. Then we may also consider, the education authorities may consider a risk allowance for teachers who are not local and they are working in these areas, some extraneous allowance, and or even perhaps flight tickets for teachers, because most of the attacks happen when the teachers are traveling by road. And then invest in technology where virtual learning really can reduce the need for physical movement of teachers from one place to another. So, Chair, we have a written statement which we have submitted to this committee for record and further engagement. But let me end by saying nobody has the solution to the situation we are facing there. My assurance from where I sit is that we have decided we will get the security situation in northern Kenya tackled permanently. That area for a long time has faced an inordinately bigger challenge security-wise than other parts of the country. And now that we've made some inroads in northern Rift Valley where banditry was also becoming cancerous, our focus now as the Interior Ministry is northern Kenya and Upper Coast. And I want to assure the education fraternity, the people of northern Kenya, and the people of Kenya, we will resolve the insecurity in northern Kenya. The current wave of terror is external. It is caused by the push down by the Somali government in collaboration with the communities in Somali, which have ganged up with the government to flush out Al-Shabaab. And what that has meant is that many of those terrorists are escaping towards our territory. And that's why, even as we moved towards discussing normalizing the reopening of the border, the current wave made us take a break from that process, and we suspended the reopening of the border until we tackle this problem permanently and we can restart the border reopening discussions after we are sure that our country is safe from the threat of terror. Thank you, Chair.